Ladies and gentlemen, will you please be upstanding with Sean Murphy and myself and recognise the TK Whitaker Award for outstanding contribution to public life. I hear Taoiseach Enda Kenny.
Got a magif, because fáilte rih gach duine. Got to get a new scriptwriter after that. Michael Noonan said to me before I came up here, finish them off, he said, give them 2 hours of Brexit. Let me say, first of all, thank you all for your attendance. I genuinely feel humbled up here with the long line of recipients over the years of the Business and Finance and KPMG Awards. And congratulations this evening to Aidan and to Brian. I'm glad to be here with Fionnuala and some members of our family. We didn't bring them very often to awards, but this really means something. And I'm deeply honoured to accept it, named after a truly extraordinary Irish person, TK Whitaker. And I accept this award on behalf of the people of Ireland who faced unprecedented economic challenges as a result of the economic collapse, but whose commitment, resilience and perseverance has seen our country follow through on a range of really difficult decisions that have restored Ireland's position as a strengthening economy with a bright future. The credit goes to the people, and I trust that the hope and the optimism that has been expressed in the brilliant biography of TK Whitaker by Anne Chambers will filter through to all our people, demonstrating that success as a country is not just about having a functioning economy, but having its benefit work for all its people in building a just society. This takes time, and many challenges lie ahead. I don't want to give you a lecture about the history of Ken Whitaker's life. I welcome his family here. But there are lessons that we can take from his contribution, which is extraordinary. In mid-1957, when the Fianna Fáil party were returned to power, Ken Whitaker produced a report which stated quite bluntly that if the protectionist policies of the country were not reversed, that Ireland's economic position would become so catastrophic that consideration might have to be given to reapplying to join the United Kingdom. This was an act of courage by a young departmental secretary to present such a report to a government led by none other than Eamon de Valera. The report was accepted, and Ireland began to change direction. Even then, Ken Whitaker knew de Valera's mind. His painstaking diplomacy and preparation for Ireland's entry to the European Economic Community, later the European Union, involved many visits to Brussels and to European capitals, and his advice was always incisive on technical matters. In 1961, he responded to questions about Ireland joining the European Economic Community and confirmed that the country would join if its economic relationship with Britain was not damaged. In 1964, the French minister, Monsieur Couve de Mourville, told Taoiseach Lemass and Ken Whitaker that whereas Britain's problem was to decide whether she was European or not, Ireland had no such difficulty since she clearly perceived herself as being European. Have I heard this somewhere recently as well? In 1965, Ken Whitaker negotiated a bilateral trade agreement with Britain after President de Gaulle vetoed Ireland's application. De Gaulle, as you might be aware, wanted a European economic community of countries that touch the Rhine, of countries that touch the Alps, and of countries that touch the Pyrenees. His view was that Ireland was too close to Britain and therefore would be prevented from joining. Ken Whitaker later called for a dignified calm after further indications that Ireland might not be allowed to join. His advice might be very valuable today in Brussels, might be even more admirable in Northern Ireland. Well, we did join, and Ireland's membership of the EU transformed this country from being backward, introverted and protectionist to being outward-looking, international, futuristic, and with an outstanding reputation for the contribution that our people make and will make. When I used to cycle to the cinema in Castlebar, there were films that were shown there. Now they're movies. Maybe there were always movies. But there's a scene in the movie Invictus that meant something to me when I first saw it. In that scene, Nelson Mandela, Madiba, rises at 5 a.m. the morning after his inauguration as President of New South Africa. And he walks with his bodyguards and security people out through the gates of the presidential house and down to the retail sector. He was looking for a newspaper. A white van comes down the street at an oblique angle. Security thought this might be ominous. A man jumps out of that van and throws a heap of newspapers in front of the shop. Mandela was not interested in the big posters of himself all over the square and in the shop window. He was interested in the headline, written in Afrikaans, which said, "He can win an election, but can he run a country?" Now, I asked myself that question before the first cabinet meeting as Taoiseach, faced with, as we were, the €64 billion problem, the Troika ensconced in our country. I didn't ask Aidan O'Brien for advice, because he might have said to me, "Get out of here as fast as Galileo ever ran." But I did ask Brian Moynihan in New York. I said, "What would you do if you were in my shoes?" He said, "The first thing you have to do is show them that you're serious. Your reputation is gone. Your name is in shreds. Your credit is junk status. Your liquidity is a real problem. You're hemorrhaging jobs. Show them you're serious. They like to have a horizon that they can plan against." Well, I'm happy that our credit rating has been regained. I'm happy that our international reputation has been restored. I'm happy that our deficit is practically wiped out, that unemployment will fall to 5% next year, that growth rates are projected again at 4.8% for 2018, and that our young people are coming home. Others may see this performance as astonishing, but we have no intention of losing focus on continued good management of the country's affairs in the interests of the people. And I wish the new government well in their work and in the many challenges that lie ahead. Let me give you a few reflections and a couple of observations. Firstly, politicians should not be seen as the enemies of the people. By and large, in this country, the vast majority of public representatives work in the public interest, and this requires an openness, a building of trust and confidence that takes time to develop. The current structure of the current government has delivered on 2 budgets and continues to move the country on the right path to the future despite its many critics. Time and patience deliver most solutions. Secondly, public servants do extraordinary work at departmental level. I saw the effort that went into 3,000 meetings during Ireland's presidency in 2013. I saw the preparations for very complex European Union meetings and the endless hours of engagement and diplomacy, often until the early hours of the morning. But public servants need clear leadership too, and a clear sense of direction to follow. They are there to give of their best and will do so if properly motivated. We live in an extraordinary world these days. The only constant is change. The future up ahead holds many challenges. Challenges of a global nature, climate change, water, hunger, population growth, migration, security, economic stability, terrorism, religious, and many other conflicts. And that future, ladies and gentlemen, is one that's coming at us. And it's one where everything is sensory, everything is intelligent, and everything is connected. Ireland's young people will be in the vanguard of meeting these challenges. They can more than hold their own with their peers anywhere around the world. We should be very proud of them. Fifthly, nothing can stop us when we work together and cooperate with each other. Witness what happens when tragedy strikes. 116 fatefully struck the lighthouse at Black Rock. Communities for 6 weeks opened their homes and their hearts and their generosity to every person who walked, who dived, who got into a boat, who searched the cliffs and the beaches for human remains. It's an Irish thing. We lost 1 million to the Atlantic after 1845-47. We picked 15,000 from the Mediterranean last year. Nothing can stop us if we apply ourselves to a singular objective. And the same goes for our future if we give opportunity to the enormous range of imagination and creative element of our people. Minister Humphreys discovered that during her year in having a comprehensive and sensitive commemorative opportunity for 1916. Think big, I always say. I'm reminded of Michael O'Shaughnessy, an engineer from Galway, appointed as city engineer in San Francisco in 1912, rebuilt the city, brought the water from Yosemite, still in use, built the Huxley series of reservoirs, and planned, designed, and built the Golden Gate Bridge. 100 years on, another man from not so far away from where he was born took over 20 hospitals in New York, employs 60,000 people. And Michael Dowling is an extraordinary individual dealing with Northwell Health in New York City. We should not be afraid to think big, think ambitious. There's so many companies, some here this evening, who've displayed that quality and that element of confidence, not to be afraid. Noli timere, said Seamus Heaney. Sixthly, politicians and politics should not be allowed to drift in this country. We are small enough to have an openness with all our people. We are big enough to listen to all the voices, including the discordant voices. We can prevent a collapse of the centre where lack of communication and lack of communication by government to the citizens causes people to move to extremism, right and left, because of fear and anger. This requires that politicians always be vigilant, always be there to deal with those who are often neglected or vulnerable, or those whose voices have not been listened to. And Ireland can respond to this. Let me give you a few memories. I was over in London, like many an Irishman, and I went down to see David Cameron. I used to get on very well with David. We had lots of discussions, signed covenants and all that. We decided to walk from his office up to the House of Commons, where there was a big marquee, and all the hospitality people were there. It was a bad night. Sleet coming in from the west, wherever the west is from Westminster Street. And at one stage, all the bobbies and security were around him, whereas like a good Irish politician, you keep your eyes on the street. We had to stand at a traffic light and wait for 30 seconds until the light changed. And as we did so, across the street, a London bus Came down the street and a fella put his fist out the window as a driver and he said, "Hope you buy you." And it wasn't to David Cameron he was speaking. Ballyglass, yeah. I recall Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in the Great Hall of Dublin Castle, the seat of British Empire power here for 700 years, in how hard she worked, in her words and the way she spoke and addressed this nation and its people, when she said, when we look back at history, some things we might do differently and some we might not do at all. And on the apron at Cork Airport before she left, she turned to me and said, "Of all the royal visits I've done in 60 years, this is the one I really wanted to do." I recall turning the corner with Fionnuala as we went to the occasion of the reciprocal visit by our Uachtaráin to Windsor Castle. And every lamppost was bedecked with the Union Jack and the tricolour. And I'd never been to Windsor Castle before. The corridors seemed to be as wide as the room here. And I met outside the room where Prince Charles explained that he played as a child with the Magna Carta. And who did I meet there except Uachtaráin na hÉireann, the recipient and worthy recipient of this award last year. And we spoke Oscailge, men of the West. And he said to me, "Do you know something? I don't suppose there has been Irish spoken like this here since Gráinne Whale went to visit Elizabeth I in 1598. I remember the excitement in College Green when Barack Obama said, "Is féidir linn?" Yes, we can. I also recall other occasions that were, they impacted on me. And one of those was down in Croke Park, standing at the spot where they present the Sam Maguire, and year after year, they try to give a smile of, understanding, and at the same time realize that just yet again, they've been just that 1% short of bringing home that long, elusive Sam Maguire legitimately to our county. Now, I'm going to finish on this. On the occasion of his 98th birthday, I sent Dr. Whitaker a note to wish him happy birthday and to thank him for his contribution. He wrote to me 3 years ago tomorrow, and this is his letter. He said, "Thank you for your kind birthday congratulations on reaching my 98th birthday." Now here's a gem of wisdom. "It was actually very easy, as all I had to do was to wait patiently, and it just happened." Banach thine nolog agus na hafli na orts agus ad a chlán go léir. So we can all learn lessons from the quality time that remains to us. The marriage of youthful energy, of enthusiasm and ability of the young, to the advice, the experience and the wisdom of the not so young is the key to our future. I couldn't have done this on my own. I look at the many colleagues in government and the parliamentary parties. I would thank in particular Eamon Gilmore as leader of the Labour Party, and Michael Noonan and Brendan Howlin as a quartet that has considerable experience and lack of fear of making difficult choices. And believe me, some of the stuff that we had to deal with in the middle of the night was not pleasant. Noonan and myself were a bit like Gareth Edwards and Barry John. We spoke a language that nobody else understood. He would say to me, "Run the numbers there till we see what's going on." And I recall, Michael, the day you called me from abroad in the face of all the comments from all the commentators who knew all the answers, when they said you'll have to devalue, you'll default, you will not get out without conditions. In December 2013, we left the Troika home. And I remember what I call the pride in people's faces that their country had made its way back to a point where we could look at that sun again. So here's my final line from Invictus, which I quoted earlier on, written by William Ernst Henley, and he said, "It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." Bless you, Ken Whitaker, for your life, for your example, and for your contribution to our country. Good morning.